Welcome inside episode 667 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains following another loss for your Ottawa Senators. They've now lost 6 straight games, all in regulation, after a 6-4 defeat to the Vancouver Canucks.
And it's a Wednesday episode, so you guys know we got a SensCentral Citizen for you. And today it's Alex Adams from Behind the Play podcast.
We do have a little good news, though. The Ottawa Senators have announced they are retiring number 25 for Chris Neil. We'll get our opinions in on that and a whole lot more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Wednesday, November 9th. The show is free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to like every video by clicking the thumbs up, subscribing to the Locked On Senators channel, being a friend by telling a friend that they should do the same, and leaving a comment below today's question. I want to know your opinion on the Ottawa Senators retiring number 25. Pilsy, before we get into the details of last night's game, what did you think of the announcement that number 25 will never be worn again in this franchise?
To be honest, I was very surprised. I don't think we're expecting this. There wasn't kind of any lead up to it or anything like that. And personally, I think it was more of a Ring of Honor thing, but I also thought Chris Phillips was more of a Ring of Honor guy. So I think Chris Phillips and Chris Neil, those guys are at the same stature when it comes to Ottawa Senators lore. And you're not going to find me upset about this. That's for damn sure, because Chris Neil was a lifer Ottawa Senators player, drafted, only played for this team, over 1,000 games. And he was one of those guys that every fan, no matter if you were someone that loved the skill players, grinders, the shutdown defensemen, the tendies, whatever your style was, you were a fan of Chris Neil if you were an Ottawa Senators fan. And if you weren't a Sens fan, you hated the guy. And that's something that I think all Sens fans could kind of come collectively together and be like, yeah, Chris Neil, that was our guy. And Ross, I'm not going to take your favorite stat away, so I'll hand it over to you so you can say the all-time legendary Chris Neil stat.
Well, I mean, there's a few of them. When you look at just the longevity at the position he played is astounding. You just don't see guys able to play 1,000 games the way he went through each and every game. One game for Chris Neil playing 12 minutes would be about 20 games for Jason Spezza in terms of the impact on his body and how he was able to just battle through. This guy is 20th all-time in penalty minutes, 2,522 PIMs, and he was never suspended, not once. And in today's NHL, that probably isn't the case, but he played by the rules that were given to him. He eclipsed 200 penalty minutes in 4 separate seasons. Pilsy, we're going to do a little trivia because I know you love when I put you on the spot with a little trivia. How many NHL fights did Chris Neil take part in?
And he played over 1,000 games. Holy crap. I'm going to say 170.
Oh, you're very close. Stick taps to you, sir.
Ooh.
176 NHL fights.
Oh, man. I mean, Ross, I've never been in a fight in my life. I couldn't imagine getting in 176 fights as a job.
Yes, in his first season, Pilsy, first NHL season, he's coming out of junior. He needs to make a name for himself, or he did play a little bit in the minors as well. He fought 17 times in his rookie season at the NHL level as a 22-year-old. So, this guy, he knew his role, and then he grew into a more respected player. There was a time where the Ottawa Senators put him on the power play to just stand in front of the net when they had so many other weapons. He actually ended up scoring 8 goals on the power play that year in 05-06, finished with a career high 16 goals and 33 points. But to me, it's not the points, of course. It's not even it's not any one situation. The fact that he was always the first guy to stand up for his teammates. It's the fact that you've already done it for Chris Phillips. And I'm glad you brought that up, because for me, if it was my team, if you don't win a Stanley Cup, you have to be a Hall of Fame level player to get your number retired. But
Daniel Alfredson, Frank Finnegan.
yeah, exactly. Way to throw in old Finney in there. Next Monday, by the way, is when Daniel Alfredson will be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. We'll do something special for that here on the Locked On Senators podcast. I should also mention that Neil's 25 will go into the rafters on February 17th against the Chicago Blackhawks. We might have to make a trip to Ottawa for that. I feel like that's in the cards.
We should do our next meet and greet and ticket day for that. That's right in the middle of the season, like we talked about.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk. We'll discuss, but stay tuned on that. But Chris Neil, this guy just meant so much to the city. He's back working with the community and the team, which is all great. This is the one thing where it's like each franchise can do whatever they please. It's not a Hall of Fame. It's not a set stat. You make your own history. And who the hell was going to take number 25? Who was going to be the next guy to wear that? You'd have to have a lot of cojones on you to do that.
Has anyone worn it since Neil left? No.
No chance.
So, yeah, that's the thing. If Chris Phillips is retired, Chris Neil deserves the same respect. So, no problem for me at all. And, yeah, that's like... Chris Neil is just such a legend. Like, there's so many moments that you can think of. Like, I even love Ross the end of his career. Remember when he gets brought in to, he comes in to take care of the Tanner Glass issue that the Ottawa Senators were having. And that's the thing. Like, he's the kind of player where just his aura, like just having him around has an impact. That's why it's so awesome that he's part of the alumni that's back in the fold with the team, doing good work in the community with Chris Phillips, like he mentioned in his video. And also shout out the Sens. That was a cool way to let him know, especially he had no idea that was coming in it. And he got to see pure emotion from a tough guy like Chris Neil. So that was cool.
Yes, 100%. I absolutely loved that. And it was a bright spot in a game that ended very poorly. But with Chris Neil, man, it's a great honor for him, and we're very happy for him. Just a soldier. And my favorite Neil highlight, there's plenty, and you should go check them out all on YouTube. Like, do you remember when he smoked Victor Hedman behind the net in, I believe, Hedman's rookie season? That's a 6'6" monster. And Neil was never the biggest guy, but he was always able to play bigger than he was. He fought some heavyweights. He was always giving up height. But my favorite situation, Evander Kane, when he was playing with the Atlanta Thrashers, made it his mission to go after Erik Karlsson. Threw an elbow at him, took a penalty, comes out of the box, and on the next faceoff, Kane kind of comes in just to like dig the puck out, and Neil is a heat-seeking missile, just launches himself at Kane, starts a melee, but it was just him saying, you're not touching our best players or you're going to have to deal with me. And that was the type of player he was, and it's a great honor that Chris Neil will have his number 25 up there in the rafters with Chris Phillips, with Daniel Alfredson, and the great Frank Finnegan's number 8. So, hey, stick taps to Chris Neil. Great to see. Love that. But Pilsy, I'm not loving this 6-game losing streak. They can't even get loser points. Like, what are we doing at this point? Because the first 2 periods, they played about as well as I think you could have.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, they dominated this game in every like, what stat do you want to use other than goals scored? Shots, face-offs, Corsi, everything. They dominated this game, and it was the perfect storm. Like, Spencer Martin is announced as the goalie. We're thinking, okay, this team has to come out of it. They're at home. Ryan Reynolds, a potential buyer, is in the building. Like, I really thought, Ross, that this is the game that was gonna end things here. And yet again, it's the same results. A 1-goal game if you take away the empty netter. The Sens finally score on the power play. They win the special teams battle. There's another one you can add to that. They finally score with their goalie pulled. Like, too little, too late though. And the Vancouver Canucks are the ones that end up getting the last laugh here.
It's like every time we point out something that needs to change during this losing streak, they fix that problem, but then new issues arise. Like the games in Florida
Yeah.
and Tampa, we're like, oh, they're getting outplayed so badly. Like they need to have the puck on their stick. They need to create possession. Now they've outshot their opponents in 3 straight games. They're dominating, but then they're still finding new ways to lose. And then we say the power play needs to figure it out. Power play goes 2 for 5, and they still find another way to lose. And I think we just have to circle defensive breakdowns. Hamonic was brutal in his own zone. Scored a goal. Looked good offensively. I like his stretch plays, but at the same time, like you're not paying him to make stretch passes. You're paying him to be strong behind the net, not get bullied by a 5'9" Connor Garland to put it out front to Bo Horvat. Really, it felt like at 3-2. It may as well have been 6-2. It may as well have been 5-1 like at the Vegas game. It felt like an insurmountable lead. And then when Ekman Larson made it 4-2, I was like, okay. I know they gave us hope twice with Timmy on a nice, beautiful feed from DeBrincat, sends him in all alone, and then Giroux, like this guy is so clutch. Like all of his goals this year seem like they're important goals, right? The one against Toronto late that tied it. Again, can't hold on to it though. And then this one to bring them within 1, but my goodness, it just felt like this team needs like a 5-1 win. Like even their wins have all been just tight, like 1-2 goals. I guess Arizona not, but
Arizona
against NHL quality opponents. But you look at this team, like they need to do something to get this monkey off their back, because I think that it's starting to really affect how they're playing and the decisions that they're making on the ice.
Yeah, I would agree. And our good buddy Mark Mathot, I thought he nailed it perfectly, like he normally does. Take a look at those goals and what's happening, and there's clear defensive breakdowns, and that's why everyone on the Fire DJ train, like I think the rest of the team has been clicking fairly well. Like you look at guys like, sure, DeBrincat's not scoring, but he's getting points. Giroux's getting points. Timmy's getting points. Brady has 16 points in 12 games. Like there's clicking and things are working. It's just all it takes is a couple moments of defensive lapses, and for those teams to capitalize on those moments of failure, and then you're scrambling and you can't come up with enough to finish the game, and you run out of time and you lose by 1 goal yet again here. So the defense is the issue, and if DJ Smith doesn't come to the conclusion that Zaitsev needs to be out of this defense, then I might flip my script on how I feel about DJ Smith, because we thought it was happening last night, Ross. There has to be an injury to Holden or a maintenance day or something. Not that Holden's played like Zaitsev, but I mean, you brought JBD in. I thought JBD played well. He boosted Shabbat's game, which is praying for, but still Zaitsev was not great here. And I hate to have a scapegoat, but that's got to be the scapegoat here for me.
Well, with WWE every Monday night, you think he was trying to do his best impression on that takedown?
That was insane. Like we talked about it on the postcast. I just about lost my mind, Ross, because this is a play. It's along the boards. It's not a high danger scoring opportunity. You got beat, Zaitsev. That's fine. Just get yourself into position and go from there. But instead, he fully gets his arm around JT Miller and just hauls him down. And the ref's right there. Like, you're not getting away with that. And it's JT Miller and the puck's right there. So everyone's watching you. And they don't score on that power play, the Canucks. So it doesn't end up costing too much. But it's just, if that's your mindset on kind of a nothing play that you go to that drastic measures, what are you going to do shift in and shift out when you are getting pressured in high danger scoring opportunities? So yeah, the veteran defensemen that are supposed to just put their head down and shut down have not been doing that. It's been the guys like Branny, Jake Sanderson, obviously, and then now JBD, who have been lifting this decor up when it's supposed to be the other way around. The young guys are sheltering the old guys right now, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't give anybody a pass for last night, like Sanderson on the goal where Hamonic left his guy behind the net. He wasn't really ready in front of the net. Brandstrom on the 5th goal, him and Shabbat both to blame. I think there was enough blame to go around for all 6 defensemen last night. Maybe 5, because I actually thought Jacob Bernard Docker was probably their best defenseman last night.
Yeah.
Which is probably not a good thing if you want to be a competitive team. I've got a
it's
couple
not.
stats. I got a couple stats I want to get to, but first, let's get to our SensCentral Citizen. Always a good vibe with our SensCentral Citizen. So, despite a 6-game losing streak where the Ottawa Senators have a total of 0 points, we will have our SensCentral Citizen. But first, Pilsy, you got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Yeah, Ross, having a good routine is important. And if you want to try to break yourself out of a bad routine, which I'm sure the Senators are doing, stick to something good for you. Athletic Greens. It's simple, guys. You put 1 scoop in your water every day, every morning, and you're going to notice a difference. I promise you, because they have 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and more to help you start your day off right. I love it because of the health benefits, but it tastes great too. And this special blend of ingredients does a lot for you. It supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and aging. Those are all crucial things for your health. It's lifestyle friendly too. So whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, you're all good. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, and still tastes great. And you may be thinking, well, this is going to break the bank for me. It's costs you less than $3 a day, and think of it as investing in your health. It's cheaper than your cold brew habit, and you're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. There's so many good 5-star reviews, over 7,000 of them, trusted by leading health experts and recommended by athletes. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into flu and cold season, guys. Just 1 scoop in your cup of water every day. Even a guy like me can do it. It's simple. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. So when you're camping or on the road, you can have it ready for you with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/lockedonnhl, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL network, and you can get your Athletic Greens. So take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutrition insurance at athleticgreens.com/NHL networks. It's Athletic Greens. Arm your immune system with the all-in-one healthy drink.
All right, now let's get to this week's SensCentral Citizen. It's Alex Adams. All right, we now welcome on this week's SensCentral Citizen. It's Alex Adams. You can follow him on Twitter at Adams14_Alex. He's the host of the Behind the Play podcast, and he joins us now. Alex, welcome to Locked On Senators. How are you doing today?
Really good, really good. I'm not used to being interviewed. I'm normally the one interviewing, so this is really cool, and thanks so much for having me on. I just wanted to say I wanted to take all the blame for the Sens losing 6 games in a row, because they haven't won since you guys came on my podcast about 2 weeks ago. So don't fire DJ, don't fire anyone. It's just fire me. No, I'm obviously kidding, but yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, we're trying to complete the cycle here, Alex. So yes, you have been the issue, and we appreciate the accountability. Everybody's got to have accountability when a losing streak like this happens. So we accept your apology, but now you coming on our show, that's going to close the gap, close the cycle, and the wins start on Thursday.
There you go.
So how'd you become an Ottawa Senators fan, Alex?
So I pretty young. I actually lived abroad a little bit when I was like really, really young, like 3 to 6. So I came back, and my first year back was during the lockout. So that was fun. I remember watching the 67s a bunch and Meth. I remember I saw the London Knights that year. And then, so I got into hockey kind of through the 67s. And then my dad started taking me to Sens games. And I remember going to a preseason game that first year with Hasek, and they had the shootout for the first time. And then I don't know if it was that year too, but that Spezza goal where he goes through everyone and then goes top shelf backhand against the Habs over Jose Theodore. I was at that game, and
nice.
I remember losing my mind. So I've always kind of been a fan since as young as like 6, 7, and when I started playing hockey, and tried to go to a couple games. My dad would, take me once or twice a year. I wasn't as lucky to see them as much as I wanted to, but yeah, I've loved them, and through the ups and downs, and then recently I started kind of going back to a bunch of games in about the year after they made that long run, just because it was so cheap. And I was like, why go out to the bar when I can spend half the money and go to a Sens game and have just as much fun? So I've been going to about 15, 20 games every year since 2018 or 2019.
There you go. That's a real boots on the ground commander there. You definitely earned some status there. So where were you living abroad? You said you lived abroad for part of your childhood.
I
Tell
lived
us about
abroad
that.
twice, actually. I lived
Okay.
abroad when I was 3 to 6. I lived in Israel, so that was
Oh, wow.
interesting. And my sister's actually adopted from Palestine, so there's all this
Okay.
interesting kind of geopolitical stuff. And then with my family, and then I lived in New Zealand for a couple of years, so that sucked. I remember playing hockey in my like garage, and like there's no hockey there, and I got NHL Game Center, and the time difference was so weird that
Yeah.
the games would be a day ahead at like 1 p.m. So like 7 p.m. Eastern would be like 1 p.m. New Zealand time. So I'd always have it on my phone and check the scores and stuff like that. So it'd be terrible, but I'd miss a lot of games. But I tried to watch as much as I could, and they did pretty well at that time.
So
They
Alex,
made-
you're a time zone master then. Like you've got the time zones figured out, because Ross and I battle with just a 1 hour difference here.
And I got my 1 hour the wrong way this morning. I was ready to go an hour beforehand and 2 hours ahead of where you are. So way to go for me.
Yeah, no, I definitely am. Been around the world. I'm very lucky to have done it, and yeah. So I'm a huge Sens fan, and it's just been tough recently, but I'm sure they'll get back to it.
When you initially started falling in love with the team, though, who were some of the guys that stood out to you as guys who you either, when you were playing, were modeling your game after, or who you just liked watching play?
Yeah, no. My nickname when I played novice hockey and Adam was the A Train. So Anton
Nice.
Volchenkov. I would like to think I was a bit more interesting a player when I played, but I really like Volchenkov, huge Spezza, Heatley. I remember as a kid I got a Heatley jersey, and my mom said like it's so much money. It's I don't know, however much like $100 or whatever. And I was like, no, he's gonna stay on the team. He always gets 50 goals. And then 6 months later, he asked for a trade. So that didn't go very well. But I love Danny Heatley. I played hockey a little bit like him, so I would have said he was my best, like my favorite player. Obviously, Alfie. But like everyone loved Alfie, so that's kind of a not a great response. But I'd say Heatley and Alfie were kind of my favorite players, and a bit of Volchenkov as well.
Pillsy, he's doubling down on being a mush, eh? With the Danny Heatley, gets him out of town. We come on his show, they start losing. I'm seeing a trend develop.
I mean, I'm a little nervous because he's wearing a Thomas Chabot jersey right now. So
Oh,
what
no.
does that mean?
Oh no! Oh no!
I know. It's all my fault. This is when you take superstitions to the next level. That's on me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, 6 straight losses, all in regulation. Have you made it out to the Canadian Tire Center much this season?
A lot, and I'll be going more and more often.
Nice.
I went to the home opener, which you guys were
Yep.
there, and that was just, as you guys know and listeners would know, that game was just so much fun. And
Yeah.
I remember when they came back, and it was just a ride, and that Zub goal was just electric. And I think I mentioned it on my podcast a little bit, but on my side, there was some guy beside me, and he was, I'd say, a bit inebriated, and he asked me who's the goalie for Boston, and I said Swayman, and then we started doing the Swayman. So I'll take credit for it. I don't know if I'm the only one that started that, but I was definitely one of the person that kind of
Leaders?
started.
Well, you mushed Swayman then too, because he was feeling it. You could tell that was affecting him, and what a way to set the bar that high, only to have it come crashing down after that initial homestand. Where would you look to right now with this team as the spot that needs improvement the most to get back into the win column?
I think it's a good question. I think most fans would know of obviously the defense and like the total defense as well, not just the D-core, but the forwards. I think it's just kind of managing games. Like I don't know how many times, maybe at least 3 or 4 times, they've been tied with about 3 or 4 minutes left. The Toronto game, the Florida game, the Tampa game, and they don't even get a point. And that's really my frustration. Is even last night, I think, in their loss against Vancouver, like they really had that game and they've thrown it away. So I think it's just execution, and they haven't been playing as a team. But really, I'd say obviously the defense, and I think if you're going to be optimistic, because I think Sens fans need that right now, I think the goaltending's been pretty good. Even though Talbot maybe was shaky a bit yesterday, that is like a sign where like they have good goaltending. Hopefully, like over an 82 game season, I think Ian Mendes mentioned like they have good possession numbers. Hopefully there's more regression to the mean, and hopefully that happens tomorrow against the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, I mean, Drake Batherson declared it a must-win game for this team. So when the players are using that kind of language, it's a big deal. So Alex, if you're DJ Smith, you're in charge of the coaching decisions. What's one thing you're doing that's going to help turn this team around?
I think most fans would say this, at least on Sens Twitter. You take out Zaitsev. I just do not understand. I'm not a person for saying people should get fired, but there's almost like I'm not like a professional hockey coach. That hasn't been my living, but I can watch a game and know Zaitsev is always the worst defender on the Ottawa Senators. And there's guys you can bring up like JBD. I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought he looked way better than Zaitsev, and Holden's been a bit iffy. So I would have taken out Zaitsev and put in Holden, I'd say, and just try that and give it a run, because they're 0-7 with Zaitsev. That's not all about Zaitsev, but I think that's the clearest thing. And as well, like they started doing that a little bit in terms of their power play, putting DeBrincat on his offside. Like he has such a good shot. And they haven't really been doing that this year, and their power play has been one of the kind of bottom 10 in the league so far, and it really shouldn't. It should be a top 10 power play. So those are the kind of little things I kind of change for this Ottawa Senators team.
If you're Pierre Dorion, are you scrambling to make a trade? I know he mentioned in the media, hey, it's not easy to get a defenseman. The prices are high right now. It seems like he's doing what he can, or what he feels like is necessary at this point. But are you just saying, all right, we got to eat the price and we need a defenseman now? Or is this just all a factor of Artem Zub being out of the lineup, and when he's back, that'll help right the ship? Or where are you at with that?
I was a big Chikrin person. I thought if you could have made a deal with a first without Pinto, or obviously we're not trading Sanderson because that's ridiculous. If you could have got a deal done with a first, a second, maybe even like a Sokolov, a Brandstrom, or Yarventi, those kind of players, I would have done it. Now Chikrin's hurt. Like, what's he adding to your team? You can't get that player. I was really surprised that they didn't go in for Ethan Bear. I think the Canucks gave up a fifth and some salary retention. I'm like, Ottawa, I know they don't always have the most amount of money, but that didn't seem like a big. I think his salary is about $2 million. So I was really surprised. Why not give a third and just give a flyer? He's a right shot. You can put him in the top four. I think Hamannik's been a bit worse recently with Sanderson. So I think that's what I would have done. But overall, to answer your question directly, I think probably a coaching change or something like that makes more sense than really going all out for a trade. Like they're the 30th team in the league in this loaded draft class. I know you guys don't want to do more and more draft videos, but maybe that's what will happen. But this is a good year to be bad. I'm trying to be optimistic somehow. So you're just not trading your first at this point. So yeah, I wouldn't really do much unless it's like a fourth or a fifth round pick for a serviceable defenseman.
Yeah, I think we touched on that a little bit in the postcast last night, where it's like we don't need the splashy signing or the splashy acquisition on the back end. Just get someone who doesn't make mistakes and who doesn't have a negative impact overall on the game. Like Ethan Bear played 1943 last night, had an assist for Vancouver, played 3 minutes on the penalty kill. Like you said, they gave up a fifth for him. John Marino has been one of the better defensive defensemen in the National Hockey League this year on a team that's won 9 games in a row. And Ottawa didn't feel like they could match a pedestrian price. It was a second rounder and a B-level prospect.
Ty Smith, who's in the AHL now. So
Ty Smith, there you go. So it makes no sense to me how they haven't even tried it. Like, I think that's what's most frustrating for me is like they're just trotting the same lineup over and over again, and we're getting the exact same results. We're just finding different ways to lose games. And I think that at this point, you should be experimenting and being like, okay, clearly having even two of Holden, Hamonic, and Zaitsev in the lineup just doesn't work,
No.
especially when your top defenseman's not playing like a top defenseman. So there's a lot to harp on when it comes to that decor. But is there any other aspect of the game, whether it's up front, like what are you hoping to see over this next month? Like, do you think this team has it, or do changes really have to be made? I know you kind of nibbled at the coach being fired at the end of your statement.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, and like I'm sure you guys know, and they've lost every game this year by 1 goal if you don't count empty netters. So that clearly shows they're not like losing 8-3 every night or getting blown out. And so again, you'd imagine that over the season they kind of get to they regress to the mean of being a much better team than what they've shown. But I think if they keep losing, you just need to get a new coach. And if you look at it, like, it's not like DJ's in his second year. Like, he's been here, this is his 4th season, and they haven't had a good start except kind of the first year where they were better than expected, I guess, for the talent. So I think that's really it. I think obviously cleaning up the defensive zone, they just don't seem to have a structure. And as you mentioned, like, why isn't JBD always in the lineup? Like, I don't understand. Like, why do you have a guy like Zaitsev or Holden who are going to be gone in 2 years, then have a guy who's probably better anyways, who is then going to develop and hopefully be in your top 4, maybe top 6, who knows, with JBD, but he's an NHL defenseman, I think. So I think it's probably time for a coaching change, or at least please just get, as you mentioned, the 2 of Holden, Zaitsev, Hamonic out. And I think you have to maybe wait a bit until Zub comes back and see if they keep underperforming, because their last 5 losses have been with him out. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I guess for optimism, they're only losing games by 1 goal, and their offense is top 5 or 8 in the league. So like, they're clearly scoring the way they should be. It's just defending.
So when you talk about a coaching change, and final question for me, Alex, thanks for joining us as our SensCentral Citizen today. Does it matter who the next coach is? Like, I think a lot of people are at the stage now where, because for me, I think a coaching change might make sense and it might give a boost, but what does that look for your long-term future? Is the right guy going to come in, et cetera, et cetera? But I think a lot of people are on the side that it doesn't matter who the next coach is. They just need to make a big change to show some accountability and that this can't keep going on, et cetera. Is that where you're at, or do you have your sights set on a certain guy that's going to come in here and right the ship?
I think, I mean, my preferred choice would be Barry Trotz, but that's kind of a pipe dream. I just think this team needs like a guy that just is structured. Even though they might be a bit more boring, they're so good offensively. They're going to score. If you cut their team defense to like being mediocre in the NHL rather than below average, I think you have to get rid of the staff itself. They've been all together for a long time. I think a lot of people talk about Troy Mann, hear a lot of good things in Belleville. That would make a lot of sense to me. And like, I'm sure you guys know, like, sometimes teams just need a new voice. Like, look at all those teams that have won the cup after firing their coach midseason, like St. Louis, Pittsburgh twice. Those kind of teams, like, I'm not saying the Sens are winning the cup this year, but sometimes you just need a new voice to just get guys to be more motivated. There's probably dysfunction within the group just in terms of probably the coaching. They don't seem like they kind of are on the same wavelength, and just so I'd say maybe Troy Mann, just because it's internal and he has relationships with guys like Batherson, Norris, Brandstrom, guys like that. So that's my pick. But if pipe dream, Barry Trotz, just because I think you want that defensive structure, because that's how you win And if you want this team to be good in 2-3 years from now, you don't want them to just be playing high-flying hockey. You want them to be defensively sound, because that's how you win in the playoffs.
So if we're looking at the longest tenured coaches in the National Hockey League, John Cooper, multiple Stanley Cups. Mike Sullivan, multiple Stanley Cups. Jared Bednar just won the Cup with Colorado. Rod Brindamore knocking on the door, Carolina perennial contender. And Craig Berube is a Cup champ. So then your next two were both hired right after the 2019 season. Todd McClellan, DJ Smith. Those two teams' rebuilds should be kind of coming along at the same time. And LA's taken a step, and Ottawa has not. Only 81 wins in 209 games behind the bench for DJ Smith. So lots to just dissect based on a slow start where the underlying numbers all look good, but the results just aren't there. Final question from me, Alex. And again, thank you very much for being today's SensCentral Citizen. And I'd encourage everyone to go check out the Behind the Play podcast. We had a great chat with Alex, upwards of an hour, just shooting the breeze and hanging out with him there. So you can go check that out. Is this season already lost to you, or is there time still to turn it around?
I want to know what you guys think too, but I would say if they're not 500 by the end of this month, then yes. Or if they're a game or two, okay, maybe not. But if they don't go on a kind of winning streak of 3 to 4 games coming up, and I know you guys have mentioned their schedule is actually, although New Jersey's been really good, they do have a somewhat easy schedule and no back-to-backs till December. So I'm getting very close to thinking a playoff hope is over, but you never know. St. Louis was worst team in the league at Christmas. That can change again. If they get a new coach, I think that could maybe spur them on a little bit too. So, yeah, not an ideal start, but there's enough time and enough runway where I think this team's good enough. If things come together, they have good goaltending, great offense, and just being okay defensively, that can be a playoff team. So, yes, but almost no. Soon they're running out of time. So hopefully they win tomorrow night.
All right, Alex. Well, we're going to be following along with you Behind the Play and Adams14_Alex on Twitter. Look forward to chatting again, my man.
Thank you so much, guys.
Stick taps to Alex for joining us. Really appreciate that great conversation, and make sure you're not only following just Alex, but also the Behind the Play podcast. We had a great conversation there. And Pilsy, Alex said he wanted our opinion as well. Is the season over? 70 games left, but it's starting to slip away.
For me, the season's not over here, and I think the big thing is obviously a 4-8 record is really tough. Like, what were those records of the past 2 years? Like 4-15-1. It was like,
yes, in the first 20 games, correct.
So I mean, the Senators, unfortunately, they got that 4-game win streak. They're at a 4-2 record, and you're thinking, wow, this is not even going to be close to that. But they are slipping closer and closer to that identical record, unfortunately, and as we all know, November's cursed for the Ottawa Senators, so that's not going to help things here. But the key thing is they're close in these games. They're going to get Artem Zub back. I think that's going to help push them in the right direction. But is it going to be an easy route to play in meaningful games? No, it's not. They're going to have to pull out a lot of win streaks here, and they're going to have a lot of bounce back performances from some key guys. Alex DeBrincat's going to have to start scoring. Tom Chabot's going to have to turn things around, but I'm not hitting the tankathon spins just yet. Let's just say that.
Yeah, well, things have to change in a hurry, right? Like we said, they have to win 2 out of 3 this week. I stand by that. I think if they go over the rest of this week, I'm probably starting to check out the 2023 draft. Like they're so close, but they're so far. Like if they're 4-10, like this is a team that we've just seen disintegrate in November the last 2 seasons. Or I guess it counts as January, but the first 20 games because COVID pushed it to start in January. But like they can't be this bad in their opening 20 games to start back-to-back-to-back years. This is the coach's 4th season, and it's the 3rd one where their start is simply unacceptable. Coaching and playing when there's nothing to play for is easy. It's not easy, but it's easier than when the pressure's on And wouldn't you consider the pressure being on when you're down late in a game too? Like, this is the same as the goalie not being pulled. It seems like when the heat gets turned up, this team cowers. And that's like probably the worst thing that you can say about a group of players, that when the chips are down, they're probably not going to win that hand.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like the core of this team are all young guys who haven't gone through long seasons of playing meaningful games. Like other than guys like Giroux, Holden, Hamonic, like this team, this is what their life in the NHL has been. Unfortunately, Brady Tkachuk, Thomas Chabot, Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, like all these key guys, Eric Brandstrom, like this is what they're accustomed to, and they haven't figured out a way to push above this level. And I don't know, like I think playoffs obviously seem like a draw at this point, but hopefully we see a big pushback from this team, and they need to get things going now. Like, I don't care how they win games. They need to start getting some win columns, because even the loser points, Ross, aren't going to help you much at this point. Especially, like, the divisional games now are insanely important. If you have any aspirations of making to the playoffs, each divisional game is a must-win game, pretty much. Like, it's wild to say that. And Drake Batherson said in his post-game comments, Thursday's game, they're approaching it as a must-win. And yeah, when you're about to go on a 7-game losing streak, you got to start winning some games.
Yes, and I'm going to get to the losing streak in just a moment. Pilsy, what's the more concerning statistic for you? The fact that they're 0-4 in one-goal games, and you can extend that to saying 0-8 in one-goal games where they have the goalie pulled situation, empty netter. I guess they scored an empty netter in one of the games, though, too. So maybe that's cherry picking a little bit. 0-4 in one-goal games is a fact. Is that more concerning, or the fact that they are 2-6 when scoring first?
I'm going to go with the 0-4 just because, like, if they're in games, how are you not one time able to push past and at least tie it? Like, I'm not even asking for, in those 4 games, for them to score the tying goal and then score the game-winning goal before regulation's over to get the win. No, you need to at least get to a point where you can tie it and make it close. And they're not able to do that. And this is a team I thought was going to outscore a lot of their problems at that level where they're outscoring their problems, which, for how this roster is constructed, they're not going to have success unless that happens.
But they have scored more than 2 goals in 4 of the 5 games during this losing streak. And the only one they didn't, they only scored 1. They only allowed 2 against Philly. Like,
but they're not outscoring their problems here. Their
right.
problems are over passing those goals, right? So
yeah. No, I hear you, man. I'm going to have to say, though, that's more concerning to me. When you score first, you have to be able to then score another one. And they just aren't able to do that. Too many times they're letting the other team either score right away or score at the inopportune times. I believe the nerds online are calling it sequencing is the problem here.
Word of the day?
Word of the day, sequencing? Are we going to do that? All right. Sequencing.
What's the day?
The exact definition of sequencing? People are like, wait, you don't know?
I never heard that word before, but our vocabulary is all jumbled up. I'm making up words left, right, and center. So
sequencing. Arranging in a particular order. And that actually makes sense, because the particular order of events is that the Senators get scored on towards the end of periods and at the start of periods. And it just sets the tone for everything else. Now, the Senators are 0-6-0 in their last 6 games. So I thought, has it ever been this bad before? The answer is an astounding yes. But it's also getting a little bit more closer, I should say, to what we've seen the worst of the Ottawa Senators. Their longest losing streaks since their Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final. Hell, you'd have to go way before that, but that's where, as far I went back, 0-7-0. They did it twice. In February 2019, right when they traded Mark Stone, traded Matt Duchene, traded Ryan Dzingel. That losing streak right there that started with that crazy 8-7 loss to Chicago. They had a -20 goal differential in that 7-game stretch. To start January 2021. Yeah, they beat the Leafs on opening night, and then they go 0-7-0. It was actually a part of an 0-8-1 stretch, but I didn't want any loser points involved. I just wanted straight up losing streaks. 0-7-0 with a minus 24 goal differential. Then you look at 3 other 0-6-0 streaks during this stretch. 3 other 0-6-0 streaks. The goal differentials minus 11, minus 16, and minus 19. Well, right now they're 0-6-0, and they have a minus 9 goal differential. Talk about finding a silver lining in an awful situation, Pilsy.
I'm not even sure if I see the silver lining here, Ross. What is the silver lining?
They're losing by less.
That's a gray lining. Like, that's not shimmering silver. That is gray, like the background of this graphic. That's a gray lining argument you just made there.
Yep. And my favorite, though, why I added this in, it's all kind of sad, but the fact that they have had another 0-5-0 losing streak where their goal differential was actually only minus 7. They only scored 6 goals in those 5 games. That was back in January of 2019. Like, this team, it just feels like when they fix one problem, a new problem arises. But it just comes down, I think, to when you do score first, which they've done 8 times in 12 games, you have to put them away. You have to score again and again. When's the last time Ottawa's had a multi-goal lead?
Arizona.
I guess Dallas, which would have been their last win. They beat them 4-2.
When's the last time the Ottawa Senators won a 1-0 game?
I mean, there's no way, like a 1-0 game.
Yeah, we scored first and we shut it down. I can't recall.
What about 2-0? Would 2-0 suffice? I got a 2-1 win over the Jets.
No, I need a low shutout.
A low just 1-0 or 2, is 2-0 okay?
Yeah, I'll accept 2-0.
Okay, I can already tell you that the DJ Smith era has a combined 0 of that, and if we're going, we got a 2-1 OT win, 2-0 shutout.
Okay,
2-0 shutout, March 14th, 2019.
Yeah.
Who scored the game-winning goal in that game, Pilsy? This is going to tell you how long ago this is.
March 24th, 2019.
March 14th, 2019.
Okay.
Christian Wolanin from Mikhail Bodker and Anthony Duclair. And Chris Tierney had an unassisted empty netter. That's how long ago this was.
Yeah, so essentially that's a 1-0 game. So I will allow that. That's the thing. Like, this team has never been able to just be like, okay.
Oh my God, Pilsy.
We got the lead. What?
This might be the worst lineup I've ever seen. This is the last Senators team that had a shutout in a game that was right down to the wire. You need every inch. You need to play well. Like, this lineup has Ben Harper, Cody Golubeff, Brian Gibbons, Oscar Lindbergh, Max Verono, Mikhail Bodker. Like, this is a Magnus Piarvi. This is a who's who.
This team's so bad.
Yeah, well, that's the last time they won a shutout game with a low score at the end of it. So this is what we're looking at right now, Sens fans, but we'll be here each and every step of the way. We've got Bruce Garriock coming on tomorrow. It's going to be a very intriguing interview. We're curious to see how it's going to go as well. And then on Friday, we already know how this gentleman is going to bring the heat, and that is Mark Method, who I'm going to ask him again and again and again and again if he still has his gear, because it can't possibly be worse in his own zone than what we're seeing out on the ice right now. Pilsy, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
That was a really depressing stat to look up, by the way.
Yeah, that was sad. And both of us announced this team's our closing statements of the postcast. The thing is, this team doesn't stink. There's a stink around this team. You know what I mean? Like, the team.
Good vibes are gone.
Yeah, like, the team has guys set up to succeed. Guys are getting points. I don't think the goaltending is the problem. If you think the goaltending is the problem, you're not watching the defense closely enough. And I know we're a hashtag goalie friendly show, a couple goalie huggers, but I disagree with goaltending issue discussions. But I don't know, like something needs to change the mojo of this team, because the process is there, but the results aren't. And somehow they got to marry those two. And I don't know what the answer is. So closing statement, this team doesn't stink. There's a stink around this team.
Hey, my final thoughts. Shout out to Aleem's Martian, our boy. We log off the postcast. He goes, I'm going to take a peek at my mentions, see what's going on Twitter. And he got a nice reply from Ryan Reynolds, who was at the game. So sounds like Ryan had a great time despite the loss, 13,000 strong at the CTC last night. Apparently, it was a little quiet. We would have liked for Ottawa to carry the momentum in. And a Bruce, there it is chant, that's kind of unacceptable. That's like the alternative to the beat the traffic chant. That is
unless that was a Bruce Garriock. Bruce, there it is.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Well, the Ottawa Senators have lost 6 straight, but they'll be right back at it tomorrow when they go and take on the hottest team in the National Hockey League. I mean, hotter than hell these Devils are. They've won 9 straight, and they look like a complete wagon. So we'll have a full preview of that tomorrow, and Bruce Garriock on the Locked On Senators podcast, and then Mark Mathot Friday. Postcast on Saturday. I'm going to join the postcast Saturday remotely from the great state of North Dakota. I'm going to go take a peek down at Tyler Clevin and the Nodak Sens. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.